I hope you guys had a pretty safe and wonderful Halloween, spent time with your family and friends, but there is a lot of news to get into, including news about Dragon Age Veilguard upon release, some MrMattyPlays drama, all the reviews has come out, and the records that it seems like that this game is already starting to break. But I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get into the news. Now, since the review started to pour out on Monday, the Metacritic score for Dragon Age The Veilguard has been sitting at 84, with the user scores not going to be available till sometime later today as of this recording, by my time at least 2 o'clock. But it does seem that a lot of journalistic outlets seem to really enjoy this game, giving it glowing reviews, 8s, 9s, and some even throwing out 10s. But in the whole process of things, we started seeing a little bit more divisiveness with certain YouTubers put out their own reviews, with Skill Up, What Culture Gaming, who seemed to be enjoying the game, and MrMattyPlays himself, who felt disappointed by the game. But it came with its own fair share of drama. A few days ago, MrMattyPlays had took to Twitter to issue an apology about some leaked gameplay that was starting to make its rounds on the internet, and it was by way of a leak, which he says that he is sent to an editor, and somehow that leaked footage had seeped through the cracks and made its way onto Twitter, which in fact led him to issuing out this lengthy apology to not only BioWare but EA as a whole, which this whole thing really got people saying, yeah, MrMattyPlays, you should show EA and BioWare who's boss by intentionally violating an NDA. Like, there were some people who was martyring this whole thing, and I don't think it's wise for anybody to violate a NDA intentionally. Now, I am appreciative that Matty held himself accountable for the whole thing, but this is one of the things where it can't happen again, because he literally could have lost all access to future games from not only EA and BioWare, but from other publishers and developers as a whole. And that's one of the things you have to apologize for if you still want to get the goods. So I don't fault him on that. And it's something that I would have apologized for if I was in his shoes. But hell, I wouldn't have even done half of that shit. If we want to have an honest conversation, that's a fireable offense. And to the people who thinks it's a good idea to intentionally leak gameplay, to intentionally violate an NDA and have yourself dragged into court, which nobody wants to do, and potentially you losing access to future games from this same publisher and developer and other developers throughout the industry, it just would tell me how much of a waste of time it would have been just to bust your ass, get where you at, just to have access to certain things in the industry, just for you to one day say, you know what, I don't care anymore, y'all can have it back. Like, what? But later on, MrMattyPlays had took to Twitter one more time to discuss this fake, obviously fake, NDA that Grums really took the bait on and thought it was legit, with Matty saying misinformation like this is damaging to the gaming community. This post is unbelievably false and is not the NDA I signed with EA, not even remotely close. The creator of this post even stated they are inclined to believe it's untrue. This is the last time I'll be speaking about this moving forward, which led to a lot of other creators who have access to certain games to come out and say that is not how NDA looks. Even people that is on the anti-woke side was like, you're off your rocker, you need to chill. And there's a few other people in the industry that gave their opinion, including Gene Park, saying that the game was having a hard time pulling me in. The main story premise isn't that exciting to me. I never cared about Solus, and the game design is very simple. I haven't found the hook yet. 5 hours in, we'll see. Then later on he said, I've grown to like the Dragon Age Veilguard's art style. I get it now. Yes, it looks weird, maybe even a little ugly to some, but it's distinctive. I'd rather have a unique art style than a generic one. Plus the character designs are generally really good. And late last night he came to the conclusion how much he really likes the game. And even the mad lad behind Baldur's Gate 3 gave his stamp of approval for Dragon Age The Veilguard. And during this whole thing, Andrew Wilson has spoken out about this in a recent earnings call. Quote, in the wake of Anthem, a big shift happened. We saw BioWare really turning into BioWare type games, really returning to BioWare's strengths. BioWare has rallied around what made BioWare a fan favorite studio and a fan favorite brand in the types of games they make. Incredibly rich worlds, incredibly nuanced characters, really powerful and compelling stories with camaraderie and friendships and relationships and decisions that matter in the context of gameplay. And I think that it's been that return to what made BioWare great and giving the studio time to deliver against what makes Bioware great in the context of the Dragon Age world is what amounts to Dragon Age the Veilguard. He continued on saying the game has breakout potential. Quote, we're going into a market with limited competition for this category of game, given some of the news that has happened across the broader industry, which it was a reference to Assassin's Creed Shadows being delayed. Ever since the game has been out, it has taken the Steam charts by storm, being the #1 bestseller. And as of right now, the player count is almost 60,000 and the 24-hour peak was at 70,000 roundabout. And it also seems that Dragon Age the Veilguard has had a mostly positive reception on Steam, which do keep in mind, as for sake of comparison, all in all, the last two Bioware games with Andromeda and Anthem, they both either had overwhelmingly mixed reception or overwhelmingly negative reception when both of them games came out, citing that both of the games had terrible performance issues, even worse so with Anthem to the point that it was reportedly at one point bricking PS4s. It does seem like that Bioware has come a long way from those last two entries, and I will be giving my own 2 cents about the game in a couple days, so keep on the lookout for that on the channel. Now, it seems as though one of the online discussions that people have been trying to move the goalpost on, because originally people were saying that it wasn't going to be that many people playing it, it was going to flop, it was going to bomb. And this post from Nor says, remember when Western games were bigger than Japanese games? Monster Hunter Wilds has literally stomped Dragon Age the Veilguard effortlessly, and all the outlets are seeing victory and calling Dragon Age a major success. All they're doing is doing the whole apple orange comparison. If we're all being honest, we know that Monster Hunter is objectively a bigger franchise than Dragon Age, and more people play that game than anybody else. And besides, this is a free multiplayer beta. It's not a full price game. I don't think the full price game comes out till sometime next year. So of course, if it's free, more people gonna be playing it. All this is moving the goalposts of what the original conversation was, where it was focused on the game and whether or not if it was going to be good, and people's concerns if Bioware can deliver a good game, not great or fantastical or the best thing since the invention of socks or the light bulb. Just can they deliver on a good quality game that isn't buggy or broken? And the only divisiveness that is coming from this game is some of the biggest YouTubers doing the reviews and a bunch of game journalist critics. Now, mark my words, by the time of this recording, by the time we get to Angry Joe putting out his review and thoughts on the game, it's either going to go one way or the other. Either a bunch of people in the anti-woke community calling Angry Joe a shill if he thinks the game is good, even though they don't realize they were literally on his dick when it came to the Last of Us Part 2 review, but that's neither here nor there. I don't understand why people in the anti-woke space feel like that they have to point to certain reviewers to validate their own narrative. Like, it don't make any sense. Just learn how to take things at face value instead of getting on a soapbox about this. Now, later on, Michael Gamble, he had took to Twitter speaking a little bit about Mass Effect, saying lots of people ask me about Mass Effect now that Veilguard reviews are out and October 31st is close. Both are from the studio, but Mass Effect is Mass Effect. How you bring a sci-fi RPG to life is different than other genres or IPs and has to have different kinds of love. Regarding the tone questions, Mass Effect will remain the mature tone of the original trilogy. This is all I'm going to say for now. And people forget that Mass Effect is on the horizon. So I know there's people trying to run with the narrative, oh, this is Bioware's last game, they're going to get closed down by EA. I hate to be the guy to burst your bubble, but the money's already spent being invested in this game. They already put out a teaser for it. The game's been in mid-development for God knows how many years at this point. You have Michael Gamble, who's leading charge on the project, been leading charge on the project for years now. I can't see EA just shuttering Bioware after this game comes out, considering that game is on the horizon. What happens to the next Mass Effect? Does it get canned entirely, or does it get handed over to a brand new studio? Which is why I highly doubt they're going to get closed down, because of all the money that would essentially be going down the drain. If I had to guess, probably close to $500 million, part of it being spent on Dragon Age already, and the other part being spent on Mass Effect. Now, the next story we have is PlayStation officially closes a mobile developer named Neon Koi and Firewalk Studios, who put out Concord, which talk about being one and done at PlayStation, and you literally get shut down afterwards. And honestly, I want to say I'm kind of shocked by this, and it kind of would come off as a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction by PlayStation, but I get it. Do you really want to spend more R&D into funding their next game when, because of the damage that was done with Concord, the next game may not deliver with them, and it would just bomb even worse or about the same as Concord did? So I get it, but I still think that Firewalk could have had a chance to have a little bit of a redemption arc, but that is one of those things that we'll just never get to see. News stories suggest that PlayStation's Wolverine creative director has left to lead the Xbox's Perfect Dark project. Brian Horton, who at one point was working on the game, has been off the project since the summer and is now headed over to Xbox working on Perfect Dark. Meanwhile, Marcus Smith and Mike Daly will have their new roles being creative director and game director. Sometimes we do hear about creators leaving mid-development because they probably fulfill their end of the bargain with the studio, and other times it could be a bad thing, especially if it's not going to come out for another couple years at least. So if this isn't going to come out sometime next year, then I would be a little, but I am still checking for the Wolverine game nonetheless. It is one of Sony's most anticipated games that they got coming out in the pipeline from Insomniac that we know of. But with that being said, y'all let me know what you think about all these stories in the comments below. Till next time, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.